Hey everyone, I am back a little bit later than I intended. I really do want to be better at doing this once a week, but life is kind of hectic and it's difficult. So for now, hey, it's been less than a month. I do want to talk a little bit more about like talking about our lived experiences. I think that's really important. I know I talk about it a lot. I kind of wrote down some notes kind of in relation to like addiction and stuff because I live in a place now where there is like a really high homeless rate, like a really high addiction rate. And I mean, like living in the Austin area, there was that same issue and stuff, but um, it's like so much more prevalent here. Like I didn't live in Austin, I lived outside of Austin, and so it wasn't as obvious. I wasn't like in the city all the time and stuff. But there's this like stigma that people still have, and there's this idea that addicts can uh, do better at any point, and they're just like doing it to themselves, and that's not like it's not just as simple as that. Just because somebody doesn't struggle with chemical addiction on the opposite end of that, it doesn't mean that they don't still struggle with substance abuse as a form of self medication when they feel like it's their only option or is it their most realistic option, or they might struggle with mental or emotional addictions, which is where I fall on that spectrum. I've never had to recover from a chemical addiction, except maybe nicotine, and I obviously still struggle with that. But um, I've absolutely had to recover from myself and from the attachments that I've formed and from like mental addictions that I've had. And then I've struggled with the whole like technological, like falling in the hole, which to an extent I get like can also be an addiction. Um, Being unmedicated over the like majority of the summer into the fall, up until Thanksgiving was really difficult, and it made all of those struggles more difficult. It was really hard to recognize my impulsive behavior because I wasn't going out and doing crazy things. I wasn't realizing that my impulsive behavior was emotionally impulsive, that I was being more insecure and more needy in my like personal, like my friendships and my other relationships. And that was something that was really difficult to recognize, and once I did recognize, still keep it in check while I was unmedicated. Um, and so it's not something that's impossible, but it's to me that impulsive behavior is one of those things that I feel like is almost like an addiction. And especially when you don't recognize it, it's not necessarily that I'm in denial. It's just that I haven't gotten to that point where I realize the things that I'm doing are me acting on impulse versus me being rational and like stopping and focusing and thinking things through and being more self-aware. It's difficult. Um, and I think that that's when it comes to that need to kind of talk about our lived experiences more. Um, I know that we're not just going to suddenly like reach a place in society where everybody's talking about how they experience certain things like um, emotions or addiction or substances in general. But if we could just talk a little bit more about it or be more aware that we aren't all experiencing things the same and that there's not really any such thing as normal, because while there are those of us who are obviously different and are neurotypical, um, everybody experiences something in some kind of way that's not normal, and we just don't fully recognize that because we don't talk about those things. We don't think to talk about it. I think there's a lot of times when we assume that there are certain experiences that everybody experiences the same across the board, and that's just not the case. Um, so it is important to talk about our lived experiences, for so many different reasons, but maybe that's something that can help to break up a little bit more of the misguided like ideas around addiction and what addicts can and can't do to get better, or what they genuinely really need more support with that they're not getting. Um, because there's ways in our own lives that we struggle with things that we might not be able to necessarily overcome on our own without great difficulty, or even without assistance, or without somebody pointing out to us that maybe that's something we're struggling with. Because even the part where you recognize it is difficult. Um, all of that being said, I am going to go ahead and share a poem because that is also part of this channel. And surprisingly, the poem that I picked to share is kind of fitting because I like point to that neediness. It's obviously it's not titled, it's not dated, which is pretty usual with my stuff. It's on paper that I can't necessarily like pinpoint to a certain time, but I think that I know it's after like a breakup or an ending to a situationship, but I'm gonna go ahead and read it, and I will not take up all of y'all's time this time. Seething, simmering, shaking, with anger that runs deep, rising in me for my perception that you're faking the way you feel. Resentment fills me because you thought you were down for commitment, even after I warned you that you'd change your mind. You wouldn't be content. Now here we are, holding the damaged remains of our relationship. And I am not the same, strong and independent, but when I love, my neediness fills me with shame, because so often it feels that my life is just a game. I am the entertainment, and when everyone has gone, I am empty because only I remain. Well, maybe not empty. I am filled with pain. Another spark, another shot to let someone fill my cup until I fucked up, because I feel so far too deeply. There's not a so in there. And the smallest letdowns leave me weeping, doubting my worth, a simple weakling. You met me in my darkness and gave me a glimpse of a love that I keep trying to harness, but as it slips away from you, I feel myself drowning and know now that you were far from harmless, not quite heartless, but not ready for me nonetheless. And now, seething, simmering, shaking, I must remind myself that this hell is of my own making. Um, and that's it. That's definitely been a lot of my struggles in life. A lot of what I go through can sometimes be partially of my own making because I fight with myself and I think harder instead of smarter. And a lot of times I make things harder for myself. Um, and when it comes to a friendship or a relationship falling apart, that's definitely an area where I struggle. It's like I go into this autopilot mode where I become so needy that I just kind of sabotage things. That really sucks. That's why I am just working on myself. Because like recognizing things is awesome. Um, recognizing that it's gonna take more work to not like be perfect, but to not fall into that pattern. That's a little bit more difficult. And I think that's where I've messed up in the past. Like I learned to recognize it, and I would still kind of make the same mistakes. Lived experiences, cycles, patterns, all of these things. Synchronicity. I'm just saying words at this point. I really feel like we should talk more about things. But I mean, I've said that enough. We all know how I feel about it. Um, but I'm gonna keep making these to share my words, not necessarily how not eloquent they are coming out of my mouth, but the way that they've helped me to channel things and get things out, and to like learn to heal and to learn to recognize certain things. I'd like to help more people like feel that they can do that. Um, but until next time, bye y'all.